Today on Turf Business TV, I'm joined by a familiar face to many of you, Andy Gray, who left Southampton to take up a role as Head of Grounds and Estates at St George's Park for the FA. Andy, welcome to Turf Business TV.
Cheers, Martin. Thank you. Nice to see you.
And you, fella, and you. So you've been in the role how long now?
3 months. Started on the 1st of September.
So you've kind of moved in the middle of a COVID pandemic. Has that caused you any issues?
It's just the way the world is at the moment, isn't it? The first month or two in the new job just sort of flew by anyway, and it wasn't until the third month where I started to think I need to meet people here now and get to know people in terms of mostly coaches, that obviously they're the ones that are playing football on the pitches, so I need to build a relationship with these guys. Normally, I would have met all of them within the first month because they would have been there. They weren't, so I have had to go out of my way and find them somewhere, meet them, etc., etc. So, but apart from that, no, I mean, the uses of the pitches has remained the same because we've still got all the England teams coming into camp. We've still got the visitors that we've had. The community's obviously been off and on as to when they're allowed to play and when they're not. But for the elite level, it's been as is since I started. So there's no real issues. It is just different, isn't it? Like for everybody.
So we'll come back in more detail on St George's and the FA later on. I'd like to start with you, as always, at the beginning. So what was your route into grounds care or turf care? What was your first thoughts on it?
I was at school and I must have been year 10, maybe year 11, but I didn't particularly like school. I could do it, I just didn't like it. One thing I didn't like was the sort of restriction of being in the classroom and being told when you can and can't go out and do what you can do, like to go to the toilet or get a drink or anything like that. So I thought, I don't want to live my life like that. So instantly I thought being outside, it's free and non-restricted. So I started to think of what jobs I could do outside, and one of them was like a greenkeeper at the time. I had a local golf course to me where I lived in Andover, the Hampshire golf course. And Dad took me down there one day to inquire about some work experience. So they took me on for the Easter holidays of 1997 when I was in year 11 at school. I spent my 2 weeks work experience, 2 weeks Easter holidays doing work experience at the golf course rather than revising for me GCSEs. But 23 years on, I suppose it is, 24 years now, it never did me any harm. So no. I'm not condoning not to revise for your GCSEs, no. But it did me okay. So I did that. I really enjoyed it. They obviously liked me because they said, yes, we'll give you like a part-time job for the summer.
Okay.
I then enrolled at Sparshot College to do a level 2 sports turf management course, MVQ level 2 it was. And again, worked at the golf course during that time as well. People on my course were all at the golf courses and everybody liked golf. I didn't. I don't like watching it. I don't like playing it. I never have. My life has always been football. So I thought, what about trying to do football? But thinking it would be too good to be true, that sort of thing. Because if I could work in football, that'd be a dream. So I don't think I'd be able to do that. But luckily, my tutor at college knew Dave Roberts, who was the head groundsman at Saints at the time at the Dell, and just inquired about some work experience for me. And Dave said, yes, absolutely. That work experience then turned into an actual apprenticeship. So I was lucky enough to get that position. And it, honestly, even to like 22 and a half years later, I still can't believe my luck at that time to start working at Saints in August 1998 with Dave at the Dell. That was how I got into it, and obviously I've never looked back since. I've loved every minute of it since.
So you worked with Dave for quite a while. Would he be right up there as one of the guys that has influenced you?
Oh, 100%, yeah. My first 9 years of my career was under Dave, and I don't think there's many people in the industry that I could have wished for a better mentor for the first 9 years of my career, without question. There are obviously other people within that group as well. Steve Braddock obviously being one. and Steve and Dave, going back to the sort of late 90s, are the two people, and right through to this day, that I still look up to and always will.
So what are the things that you got from those two guys? And let's think about Dave in particular, as you work probably longer and more closely with him, yeah?
He was always wanting to see what was next and what was new and try different things. He was never afraid to try different things and experiment. And one of his, if I had a penny for every time he said, let's see if we can make something to go on the back of the tractor, I'd be a millionaire. So I don't know if he ever did make anything to go on the back of the tractor, but he always was planning it.
You got to have a dream.
And yeah, it just is. When we put the field top maker across the Dale in May 1999, and I believe that was the first time that machine went across certainly football, like a first class football pitch in this country. So he was the one that took that plunge, and at the time I was just sort of 18 years old. I just went with it. I thought that was what you do, but it wasn't until after I realised that, Christ, this is quite sort of revolutionary. We also ran, because of the nature of the Dale pitch was like a natural soil, we ran the recycling dresser across it as well at the time. So first time I ever saw that. But yeah, other than that, it was just the way that he was completely open to sharing those ideas that he had, and was wanting to educate not just myself, but the whole team at the Saints at the time, and anybody else that was wanting to listen. So,
okay.
And he left in 2007. Yeah, it would have been. Yeah, I was well on my way by that point from him.
We'll come back to what happened after Dave left. Your involvement with Steve Braddock, what have you had to do with him down the years then?
For me, it's my only personal opinion, but again, to this day, Arsenal, whether it was Highbury, the Emirates, London Colney, and even up into Hale End recently, is still the club, if you like, the team to look up to. They're the ones that still producing it day in, day out, week in, week out, month by month, year by year for 20 years plus. And that isn't coincidence. So I've never worked with Steve. I've only ever visited. I've spent time in his company. A friend of mine does work there, so I'm in regular sort of contact with what they do. I've had a good, long-standing relationship with both Paul Burgess and Paul Ashcroft, both of them I respect massively as well for what they've achieved and they continue to achieve. So yeah, I've always thought of, even when I was working at Saints years ago, I'd be out on the pitch on my own doing something, I'm thinking, I wonder what they'd do if they did it if I was at Arsenal. I wonder if this is what they do at Arsenal and things like that. So, and that's all down to Steve basically. And you look at the trail of people that have come from him. Again, it's not coincidence.
So Dave moved on. Did you immediately step up to the role, or was there a progression still?
He was a grounds manager at the time, so he oversaw St Mary's and the training ground. When he left, the club decided to split it. So I got given St Mary's to run, and Graham Mills got given Staplewood to run. So we were then joint head management of the football club with our own sites, basically. So that was Christmas 2007. And then in February 2011, so basically 3 years later, they decided they wanted to have a grounds manager again. So at that time, I was lucky enough that I was chosen for that position. So that was how I got to where I was, but not immediately after Dave left, no.
Okay. You make your own luck, Andy, I think, in this world. So yeah, be a bit more positive about your own achievements. Don't be so modest is my kind of feeling there, perhaps. So in that next period, you spent quite a while running the whole ship there down at St Mary's and across the training ground as well. What are your proudest achievements in that spell at Southampton?
Working at the stadium, you always want to, your recognition comes with the Crowns and the Year Awards. It's quite, I say opinionated, controversial isn't the word either, but people have their opinions on the Groundsman of the Year Award. It's marked by the referees. It isn't consistent, if you like, and there are plenty of flaws in it. However, it is the only one going, really, so you have to go by it. And we were lucky enough to win that with Dave in 2004 in the Premier League, and then in 2008 in the Championship, 2010 in League One, and then the Premier League again in 2014, which we actually won jointly with Arsenal. So again, if we're going to win it with anyone jointly, I was quite happy for it to be Arsenal.
Yeah.
I mean, we were doing something right at that time. So that goes without saying, they were the achievements, if you like, on paper. But I suppose to build Staplewood, the training ground, like we did over the course of the last 8 years, and in particular 2012 to 2015 were the biggest changes, that we built a site that people came down to and would go, oh, wow, I didn't expect this. And sort of part of me was thinking, well, what were you expecting? I don't know if it was a compliment or not. It was. So to people to come in and be surprised at how good it was, but how nice it was as well, was a huge compliment. And everyone that came would say that. So I'm very, very proud of what we achieved at Staplewood, definitely. And not just the pitches that we built, but the landscape that comes with it, the environment that you feel settled and comfortable in, because the players are working at the end of the day, and they have to feel comfortable where they are. So that the landscaping comes with it as well, and then also the team that we managed to build to look after the site as well. I'm proud to say that when I left them in end of August, the state that I left them in was a very strong one, I feel. So
You've always been quite vocal about your team and the guys you got around you. How much of your time as a grounds manager has been spent on managing and developing the teams that you've worked with?
I've always said that if you're in charge of nothing without them, if you're only as successful as what they do out on the pitch, because if they're not doing it correctly out on the pitches, it's then my door that's going to get knocked on by saying, Andy, the pitch is this, that, or the other. What's wrong with it? So they need to, I'm only as good as what they produce. So you have to look after them, and that's how I've sort of taken on the last, I'm going to say 3, 4, 5 years of making sure that they're looked after, because essentially it's a simple case of I look after them and they'll look after me, in terms of making sure that they're given everything that they require to do their job in the most efficient and effective way. And by doing that, the results that they achieve will then only reflect well on us all as a department. So I'm always there for them. It's a cliche, but the office door is always open. The phone is always on. I'll talk to people inside of work, outside of work, just make sure that they're okay themselves generally.
Has that been more of a struggle through this year? I mean, and you've experienced it 2 different employers, haven't you? So I don't know if there's been significant differences.
I think this year's just got everybody down generally. But as the year's gone on, people have tended to sort of get a bit more used to it and just accept it. But yeah, so at the moment, I said to someone earlier on that you're going to work and you're going home. And when you go home, you're just waiting to go back to work. You can't do anything to enjoy your life as such. So I wouldn't say it's any more difficult. I think people are just accepting it. But again, you do make sure that people are okay mentally.
Yeah.
For the year that we've had, everybody's different. And I think part of it, doing the job that we do, you're quite lucky that you're able to go to work. Nobody is stuck at home on their own, because you can't work from home if you cut grass, can you? So,
well, there's plenty of people that aren't able to, look forward to going to work tomorrow. Work is still at home, isn't it? And they're the lucky ones in some respects. So,
yeah, and also there's plenty of people that have lost their jobs in that time. So, to still have a job on full pay, that there's a lot to be said for that. Basically, nobody should ever forget that either.
What do you think of the morale out there in the industry at the moment? Do you think because of the industry we're in and people are allowed to get out there, is it a bit higher than perhaps the rest of the country?
Whether it be Southampton or the FA, there's plenty of office staff that are at home and have not set foot in either the stadium or training grounds since March.
Yeah. And
they've said they hate it. They can't wait to come back. So I think that because you are able to come to site and one can say carry on as normal as possible. Yeah, on the whole, people are happy. It just makes it can take the fun out of it slightly, because you've got restrictions obviously when you're at work, because simple thing like you come in the morning, you start at 8 o'clock, you come in at 7:30, have a cup of tea, have a chat with the boys, talk about the football from last night, etc. You can't do that at the moment. You have to come in, put your boots on, get ready to go to work, and then split lunch times. It's just lost the social aspect of it, really, which is what the world is. So yeah, it just makes it more difficult, and obviously wearing masks indoors and making sure you wash your hands and sharing cups, etc. You just got to think about everything that you do, and it just makes it harder work. But as I said, there's plenty of people far worse off than what we are. So
good attitude, mate. So time at Southampton came to an end. That was fairly recently, obviously. I mean, I imagine that the discussion and the role was in place a while before September. So were you being interviewed during COVID, and was it kind of like a remote process, or did you actually manage to get face-to-face?
yeah, my initial interview was pre-COVID. That was in person at St George's Park. And then a few weeks went by, and then with a couple of sort of discussions going on as such. And then COVID came, and it just, obviously everyone went home. The world stopped literally for sort of 3 or 4 weeks. Nobody knew what was going on at all. And I didn't hear anything on for a couple of months after that. I then got a phone call at the end of May asking if I would still be interested. And I said, yes, absolutely. So I went back to St George's for, it wasn't an interview, but it was a chat. It was a look around, because to that point, I'd never actually been in the groundsman's area either. I'd been to St George's before, but never up into the groundsman's yard. So,
right, okay.
And then I'd wanted to also meet a couple of the guys that I'd be working with. So I did that on that day. And essentially verbally accepted it there and then, because I knew it was what I wanted to do. I just wanted to 100% make sure.
Sure.
That was the end of May, and I literally handed him a notice in at Saints on the 1st of June. Had a 6-month notice period on my job at Saints.
Yeah.
Fortunately enough, they agreed that I could do 3 months. So that was what I did. Okay. I personally wanted to finish the season last year, as in, because obviously it got stopped and restarted in the summer. So I wanted to see out the Project Restart, as it was called. So yeah, I literally, and then because I also started at Saints on the 10th of August, I quite wanted to get to my 22nd anniversary as well.
Right,
so,
yeah.
Okay. So I was able to do everything I wanted to do, basically. I literally finished with nothing else left that I wanted to accomplish. So it was perfect in many ways. And
still a wrench, though.
Yeah. The reason I'm hesitant, not because of disrespect that, but it's because I'm so sort of excited and happy with what I've done and what I've got now, what I've got to look forward to. That, yeah, it's I achieved quite a lot at Saints, and I'm very, very proud of all of it. And John Wright's now taken over from me, and he will make a massive success of it himself. So I'm pleased that I'm able to give someone else that opportunity to have that as well. So. Yeah, it's hugely life-changing, because even handing him a notice in, I didn't quite know what to do. I had to speak to HR to say, what do I do? What happens next? And stuff like that. So,
because that really had been your only job other than part-time at the golf club, yeah?
Yeah. In the interim of working at Saints, in the middle of it, 2005 to 2009, Southampton and AFC Bournemouth had an agreement that the Saints ground staff would maintain their pitch.
Right.
We were both had money issues at the time, so it sort of suited both parties for this to happen. So for 5 to 7, I was the one that looked after the pitch at Dean Court. So I was still an employee of Southampton, but essentially working at Bournemouth. So I didn't have anything. Yeah, Saints was still my employer then. And then in the summers of 2008, 9 and 10, I was a casual at the Edgehill Bowl for Hampshire Cricket.
Oh, right, okay.
At that point, I thought, would I fancy working in cricket? Those 3 summers told me that I didn't.
What put you off?
Utmost respect for the cricket boys, telling you. Yeah, that's tough. That's tough. So, but I enjoyed that as an experience. Like I say, if I didn't have that experience, I wouldn't have known that I didn't want to do it.
Sure.
Again, that was just a casual. So I have had other working experience, but as actually a full-time employer, Southampton Football Club was my only one, for 22 years. So
exciting as it is, it's obviously very different. A step into the unknown. but I can understand the attraction. You've worked in club football for all of your career, then the national team, if you like, come knocking. You went through your due diligence, accepted the job. What were the real attractions that made you, walk away from Southampton that has been your life up until then, professionally? Yeah.
I think any football player, whoever you are, will want to play for your country. And I as a football fan, don't see that any different as being in our industry. Why would you not want to represent your country, basically? So there's obviously not too many of them jobs about, because if you're English, it's England. So you've got Carl obviously working at Wembley Stadium, who I know very well because I used to work with him at Southampton years ago as well. So I've always sort of obviously viewed, when you're a kid in the playground, any kid, you score the winning goal when you're at Wembley, aren't you? So Wembley's the pinnacle of stadiums, and St George's Park being England's training ground, I always saw, in my view, as one of the top jobs in the country, along with obviously Carl's role at Wembley, but the guys at the big clubs, Champions League, etc., and the big training ground. So those jobs don't often come up, because 9 times out of 10 they're promoted within, and in my opinion, so they should be, because that's the whole idea of the natural progression and succession. So yeah, when I saw St George's, I thought, yeah, why not? Definitely. And I had a quick chat to Carl about it, and asked him what his thought was, and he could only recommend the FA as an employer, because obviously Saints are a very good employer themselves.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to sort of leave it in, then sort of regret it. So, but he said no, absolutely. I knew a few other people working at the FA in different roles, different departments. Spoke to them, and they could only recommend it as well. So I just saw that as no different to a player playing for your club, Saints, to playing for your country. So to represent your national country.
So that first, senior men's training session, was that a bit of a buzz?
Yeah, it was actually my very first day. So.
Oh, was it? Oh, wow. Okay. In at the deep end.
My very first day was September 1st, and that was the very first day of the September camp.
Right,
so,
okay.
Ironically, one of the last people that I saw at Staplewood on my very last day on that Friday afternoon was James Ward-Prowse. And he was one of the very first people I saw on that Tuesday morning at St George's Park, because he was in the England squad. So it was quite ironic, really, but it's nice as well. He was with Danny Ings as well, so it's like going to a brand new job, but you still got sort of 2 familiar faces there. So that was decent. But you're used to Premier League players, managers, teams, etc. And all these players are people that have played at St Mary's before. So. But to actually be part of them is obviously something different, something special. So it was nice to be, like say, thrown in at the deep end, but that was nice because that was what you're there for, basically. It's what you're all there for. So that was decent.
So what's your brief for St George's then?
There's no actual punchline, but it's to essentially make it, the best training facility, I wouldn't say in the country, but around Europe. That's my personal sort of ambition, because that's what I view it should be. It's the national football centre. It should be up there with the best training facilities in the country, which currently are Arsenal, as I said before, Tottenham, Man City. I think Liverpool have obviously just built their new first team site next to their academy, and they're upgrading that as well. So Chelsea and all the big teams that you can imagine have the best training facilities, and it's small, but it is decent. It's Staplewood, and I'm not saying that because I'm biased, but it is decent. It's just small. So that's it. That's what I personally plan and hope to do. So obviously, predecessors have obviously put in place what they've done, and I've got a good place to start, shall we say? It's a good. Okay. We're in a good position to start it off. So
you've got a number of different pitches and surfaces to look after there. In terms of football pitches, what have you got?
There's 10 grass pitches. There's 3 hybrids, 2 fibre sands, and the other 5 are still natural soil.
Okay.
The natural soil pitches are something that I've not worked with for a while. When I was at Southampton, the actual out ground, if you like, where the women's team played was a natural soil. So I've had experience of that the last year or two. But Staplewood was completely sand-based. So it is sort of not relearning, but remembering that things like nutrition programs don't need quite as much. They could probably, when it's wet, you have to take that into account, etc., because they're not so free-flowing. So yeah, it's all learning. And you go from site to site. Pitches are different. Assist pitch on one site would be different to assist pitch on another site, etc., and etc. So yeah, it's nice to have that variance on the site as well, rather than having the same thing right through. So,
and you got an artificial surface or two as well, haven't you?
Yes, 2 polytan carpets. One's indoors, one's outdoors. The outdoor one's obviously floodlit, and they're both. I think they're both reconstructed or relaid, shall we say, in 2017. So they're both fairly new. Yeah.
Okay.
And in particular, the indoor pitch, which is pitch 7, is something that the FA are very, very proud of. So it is to be kept, in the best possible condition. So.
But it's not just football pitches you're looking after up there. You've got quite an estate to manage as well. Are you looking after all of that?
Yeah, and again, in our industry, you go from a stadium, training ground. They are very, very different. And some people like one, I don't say not the other, but they prefer one. And I've had experience in both. And I did like looking after the training ground and the variance of it. And Staplewood was 23 acres altogether. St George's Park is 330. So it's slightly bigger. Yeah. And you just need to drive in the main gate and down that driveway and you think, wow, it's so vast and so open, and it is beautiful. I had a couple of frosty mornings just last week, so I couldn't help but take a few photos, and I put a couple on Twitter, which got a nice reaction. It's just beautiful. The sun comes up, and I love the fact that you can walk from a sort of £1 million constructed hybrid football pitch, and you literally walk 10 meters and there's a Highland cow sticking his head over the fence.
Yeah.
I love that.
You're not looking after the cows, are you, Andy?
God help them if I am.
But you got trees and woods to look after and maintain, yeah? So these are all new skills that you're learning, or is it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, we had a bit of woodland at Southampton, but nothing major. But yeah, I obviously rely heavily on the estates guy, Matt Arnold, that's his background, that's his expertise as to, and he left St George's Park, but he's gone back. So he had years of experience on the site. So I lean on him a lot for the estate side of it. He's got relationships with the local farmers, because on the cattle, obviously in the fields we own, but on a sort of general basis, the farmers themselves maintain the fields with the cattle. So he has relationships with them. But absolutely, yeah. We've got, in particular, the 2 main ones, Kidney Wood and Berkeley Wood. And obviously I've had to learn where they are and what's in them, and estate management, the tree management, etc. So, but I like all that. It's not just talking about grass and football pitches, it's everything that comes with it, and I do really enjoy that.
So you're getting your teeth into the role. So far, so good. What's your ambition for the place then? I mean, we spoke about the brief. I mean, in terms of anything that you see that you want to put your stamp on it in the short term?
In the short term, it's a bit tricky now because of obviously COVID, budgets, etc. And you've got to be realistic in what you're trying to achieve and what you're asking for. But you've got your free centre pitches. The free show pitches they're all fairly quite new, and part of the project before I came, I think Scott oversaw it, was new barriers and new ball stop nets at the end, which look brilliant. First class is what they should be, and they're in keeping with the site. Because before there's like different nets on different goal pitches, etc. So they're all uniform now. So it's things like that I'd like to then replicate further throughout the site. So, but as I have to be realistic in time frames. You are looking at sort of 5, 6, 7 years before you could even think about having the rest of the site like it. So,
right, okay.
So yeah, that's what I'd like to do. As you drive in, you've got pitch 1 on your left, which is the first grass pitch you see. it's not too popular with the teams because it's quite a distance from the hotel and the change rooms, etc. But because it's the first pitch that anybody sees that comes onto site, for me, it has to be spot on 365 days a year because it's first impressions. So
Yeah.
it's not maybe favoured, say, by players and coaches, but for me and our team, it should be and is treated the same as the show pitches in the centre. So yeah, I've got ideas of what I'd like to achieve and where to take it.
But you're not going to tell me. Yeah.
I've not got it straight in my own head yet. So
Yeah.
I've achieved and built what we built at Southampton, and that was very, very successful, as I say, and beautiful. But there's more than one way of doing it, and I don't want to just replicate that. I want to see. I've been to the training grounds all the time as well. I've always done that. To see who's got what and who does what, and I will continue to do that when I'm allowed again. And
so, working for a club, you're focused on, I guess, the team, and the real focus is on the first team, I guess, mostly, and the men's first team. St George's Park, although the focus is international football and it's the training centre for all England teams, it's a bit of a workhorse as well, isn't it? There's some less polite words that are used about it as well, I think. It's called a bit of a brothel or a whorehouse, etc. But if you've got the money, you can play there, is the kind of reputation it's got. Does that present you with any different challenges to what you faced in the past, and how you're dealing with that?
The FA have got their slogan is the FA, it's obviously the Football Association, but they call it for all, the FA for all. And I was conscious of that in my interview, and I took that on board. And it is the case. So, different obviously levels of clients, I suppose, and since they're all bringing money in, so you try and accommodate where you can, but as long as it isn't to the detriment of any of the England teams, because that's what it's there for. They are the most important people. So as long as nothing's to the detriment of any of them, whether it's the men's under 15s, the women's under 16s, or men's or women's seniors, anything in between, we like to try and accommodate where we can, anything and everything, because I personally do believe it is a site that should be experienced by anyone that possibly can, because anyone should be proud and privileged to be there, work there, play there, whatever you want to be. So, no, I'm keen to try and accommodate as much as we can, that absolutely, across all walks. So it's not exclusive for anybody that can or can't have access to it.
So now you're there, you're working with the England team. It's, how do I put this politely? Do you think it's raised your profile in the industry a bit more? I mean, you were always quite proactive and had a profile, but have you felt that it's enhanced it, or there's any more pressure, is what I'm trying to drive at?
I don't know is the answer to that. I never looked at myself in that way. I was with Carl last week, actually, and I sort of chatted to him about this, and he's the same as me, that you don't ever stop and think that the position that you've got is sort of a position that could be wanted by millions of people. Which it probably is, but you don't ever think of it that way. You're just you doing a job to the best of your ability, and you've obviously worked hard to get where you've got to, and very proud to where you are. But
okay,
I suppose it is, but I don't ever stop and think about that. I'm not that type of person. So,
and you're not feeling any extra pressure because of it?
No, I know, and again, talk personally, I am. That is me. I've never been like that. I've always been I've been always very level-headed. I never get too excited, never get too upset, and never tend to worry about anything that I don't have control over. So,
but what I've found from you, Andy, is that you'll speak up when you feel it's needed, and certainly when we've been discussing industry issues in the past, you've got opinions and you're prepared to share them. And I guess at the moment, COVID aside, because that's a big issue, what do you think are the things out there that the industry is going to be facing that are going to be either opportunities or challenges that we have to look at in the coming years?
Yeah, we touched upon this on the question time, didn't we, about getting people into the industry?
Yeah.
And I said at that time, and I firmly believe it's like a generational thing of just YouTube. online stuff, people, reality stars, etc. People making millions of pounds by playing a video game, recording it, playing it back on the internet, and people watching it. I don't get it, but
same here. But
and because you can do that, they think, oh, that's good. So why the hell would I want to like work for money if I can do that?
Yeah.
That's also, so it's no different. It is completely different, to be fair, to actual being a football player. You have to work hard to get to where they get to the top. But again, you go back sort of 20 years where the reality TV thing started, Big Brother, etc. And now you've got people being famous because they're on a TV show for 3 or 4 weeks in the summer.
Well, they're actually not famous for being on TV. They're famous because they're on YouTube and then they get put on TV. That's the other bit,
Going into schools and colleges, not colleges, schools mainly, to like careers things, etc. I do, whether it be the GMA or whoever, need to be present at these sort of career events to promote the industry. And I've said, a career event in pre-COVID and hopefully in the future is in a school hall. All the colleges are dotted around the edge, and if you've got GMA in the corner and behind them you've got a banner of Wembley Stadium, a banner of Old Trafford, that you'll have people straight over there. Well, what's this? I like football.
Yeah.
Once you've got that, that's their interest, and once you've got it, oh, this is who we are. This is what we do. Oh, wow, yeah. I never thought about that, and things like that. And honestly, I've been a huge football fan all my life, and I can't believe my luck that I get paid to go to the Bernabeu, San Siro, Juventus Stadium, Wembley, Old Trafford, to stand on these pitches that you can't even do to pay. You go on a stadium tour, you don't get to go nowhere near the grass, and I'm being paid to be on the grass. And it's not something I thought when I was at school, to be fair. I thought it was too good to be true, like I said. And I think kiddies just need to be told it isn't too good to be true. It's freely available, but we encourage anybody that wants to get into it. And ever since I've given my chance by Dave at Saints all those years ago, anybody that's ever contacted me to say I'm interested, I've said, yeah, come along, come for a chat. Even if it's just a day and afternoon, I've invited him into Saints, showed him a bit of kit. This is what we do. We walk around the pitch. This is where James Ward-Prowse does his free kicks. This is where Danny Ings practices all weekend. It's just things like that. You said it like that, and that gets their attention. They think, oh yeah, I'd like to do this. And it's just things like that. It's to actually use. I'm talking obviously from football. Obviously, our industry is all sports.
Yeah.
But you'd have people that like cricket that don't like football. It's to actually, for me, use the actual sport itself to sell our industry. This is how you might not be quite good enough to play football, cricket, rugby professionally, but if you want to be involved, there's more ways to be involved than just playing it. So
I absolutely echo that, and I get the same buzz that you get from going on all of those places, and I've even had to work a day as a groundsman to do it, so aren't I lucky? Andy, what's next for you then, career-wise? You're not going to just think about this until you hang up your pitchfork or whatever, are you?
I don't know, because say 12 months ago, if you'd have asked me, I wouldn't have thought I'd be working for the FA 12 months ago. So I don't have a dream job. I never have as such. I describe myself as a bit strange in the fact that most groundsmen do the groundsman job to work outside, cut grass, produce pitches, etc. If you do that and you do well at it, you get promoted. And the more you get promoted, you then end up finding yourself sat in an office, which is where I am. And most people don't want to get to that point because they still want to do the work. Whereas I've found myself quite enjoying the office side of it, the admin side of it, the management side of it. I quite like the organisation, the arrangements, and putting things in place, planning things to watch them come to fruition and watch everyone else sort of produce that and thrive on it. So I quite like that. So in the future, I honestly, I don't know. I mean, I was at Saints for 22 years. if I was at the FA for 22, that would see me to retirement, but that's quite depressing to think of that already. People have said to me as well, going to the FA, that it will open doors for UEFA, FIFA, etc. Things like that would interest me.
Okay.
Again, my kids are 10 and 11, so if it was UEFA, FIFA, I'd imagine that would require quite a lot of travelling. So I wouldn't necessarily want to do that. Well, I've got kids, but again, 10 years' time, they'll be grown up. So, but no, I certainly, I've only been there for 3 months, but I certainly see myself staying where I am for a good few years to try and achieve something similar to what I did at Southampton. So if I can do that again, that would make me most proud, yeah.
Okay, Andy, I think it's been a fascinating conversation with you. As always, you're very open and honest, and you've got something to say. So thank you for your time today. And all I can say is, if you're half as successful at St George's as you were down at St Mary's and the training facility for Southampton, then you'll have done a sterling job, mate. So wish you all the best with that one. Thanks again.
Thank you very much.